Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Zoobox Goes to the Library. I'm here with my good buddy, Big Paul, riding shotgun. Today, we're going to be talking about a comic book. Now, if you guys don't know, if you're unaware, Big Paul hasn't been around too much lately. Everybody's been busy lives. He has become our resident comic book expert slash anime expert slash manga expert slash weeb. So he came to me with this, which was such a shock. I mean, not shocked because I knew that you have been reading comic books and stuff. But when I started reflecting on it, and I started thinking of like when I was like 20 years old reading stuff like this, and Paul's like, whatever, dude. It looks pretty gay.
Yeah, it was pretty fake, pretty gay. But then time happens, and then you feel like, hey, maybe that wasn't so bad.
The first time I remember this was Battlestar Galactica because you and your wife laughed in my face because I used to DVR it, and we all lived together, everyone, and I DVR'd it, and I would take up room on the box.
We couldn't DVR Rock of Love because it was Battlestar.
That might have been true, but I would also watch Rock of Love too, so.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done that intentionally. It wouldn't have been malicious.
But it happened.
Anyways, so today we're going to be talking about Keanu Reeves's comic book, BRZRKR. Oh yeah, Big Paul. He's got all 3 volumes. Now you brought this to me. What inspired you to check this comic book out? It was just the connection of like Keanu Reeves, and who doesn't love Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, one, it was just kind of like, Keanu Reeves wrote a comic book. How do you not check that out?
Yeah.
How do you not check that out? And so like you said, and it's funny because Keanu Reeves is like spanning a couple generations. I have a son who's a teenager and 14-year-old. And
oh yeah.
And so, we know him, and like Bill and Ted, and then The Matrix, right? Like cemented into our minds the formative years, right? He knows him as John Wick now. Yep. And so, actually when it came in the mail and I was looking at it, my son's like, is that John Wick? That looks like John Wick.
Like, funny you should say. Yeah, Keanu Reeves has a very distinct look, and he brings it to everything, which I kind of appreciate. I kind of like that he's like, no, this is how I look. I'm not going to do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a beard and long hair.
But you know how Amazon gets you, right? And so I pick up, I'm like, I'm going to check out volume 1. And it was like $11, and like, commonly bought together, get all 3 for, 20 something. I was like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Because like, what if I read volume 1, I really like it, and then now I gotta wait for again 2 more days to get. Nope. Let's get all 3, and then if it's good, then I binge, and then not.
I'm proud of you because that's just kind of like you're forecasting. You're looking into the future, and you're understanding something about yourself that even if it was bad, you would still be annoyed that you couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was bad, you'd be like. Well, now
that has actually happened to me. That has actually just happened to me recently. Remember, I got into like the Red Rising series. It was kind of young adult, but I was able to swallow some and get through it. Did the Audible. It was like a good narrator, whatever. I actually did a short video.
You did a video about it, yeah. It's on the channel.
But same dubious recommendation source like said, oh, you got to check out this one called Unsold. And then I started it, man, and that was tough. It was tough. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I can't go on. So I didn't even finish it. I got like about 7% through the Audible. And I'm like, hey, nope, I'm done. I've heard enough. So sometimes you do got to pull the plug. Sometimes I will out of like, we're going to start this. And then.
It depends how long it is. I mean, but I do, it is true though. You do have to give like a book like at least 50% because sometimes they start off in a place where you're like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't get what the fuck is going on. And then, because it's a book, because it's a story that you're supposed to know the entire thing to understand.
Right. Especially when it's sci-fi. Right. And so, but you gotta give some time to breathe and let all that settle. But
you got to wait for one of the 4 twists in every sci-fi novel.
Yeah. Dude, and I'm almost like tempted to not finish True Detective season 4, man, because it's becoming a hot pile of dog shit.
We can go on a little tangent here because I have watched the first couple episodes. I agree with you. and I got in a fight with a guy who runs a horror magazine this
Mm,
afternoon on X.
no shit.
Yeah, he blocked me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe we'll take it back because I was talking to my wife about it, and it's just all I just want to do is rewatch seasons 1 and 3 again, and
well, because
like because
this
this
is
one's
the
so bad. This one's so bad that it makes season 2 look like good,
yeah, but
right?
see, if you revisited season 2 without the expectation that it's a true detective, you would like it.
Hmm. Well, you
Season
know
two
what?
is actually
Maybe
good,
fair.
but because I watched season 2 like so far after the fact, like after all the disappointment,
Hmm.
basically, and I kind of just took it for what it was, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's super different. It's just very different than the
Yeah.
first season, and you have an expectation because that first season is so distinct. Like that tone, that style, like the ominous nature of it, the nihilistic kind of philosophy
Yeah.
of it,
Hmm.
like it's just super distinct, and you wanted more of that,
Yeah.
because season 1 really leaves you wanting,
Hmm. Oh
and
yeah.
season 2 is just like, oh, we're doing something completely different, and then season 3 they went back to kind of a more similar tone to season 1. There's
Hmm.
allusions to season 1, but those are all Nick Pizzolatto, I think his name is, the original creator.
And he
He's
actually
not.
came out. Came
He's
out.
not.
He's not associated with season 4, even though he's credited to being an executive producer.
And he thinks it's dumb because
Mhm.
they've already revealed this. It is like basically a directly related to season 1, which is really dumb.
Yeah.
Because
He. I thought he dismissed that. So no. So
no, it is. That's why he
uh
doesn't like it. He's like, that's a really
um.
dumb idea. Because the thing is, when you have things like this on these kinds of shows, we were all kind of, I think everybody was felt a little under, like the wind was taken out of your sails at the end of season 1 a little bit, because they don't actually get the bad guys.
Mhm.
They get like the one bad guy,
Mhm.
but they don't actually they solve the crime in a vacuum rather
Yeah.
than the larger plot, right?
Right.
And and that's what makes it intriguing. That's what
Right.
makes it memorable. As soon as you start answering those questions, you're going to be immediately disappointed. And I think he understood that. I think that's why he never wanted to go back. And it was also a commentary on kind of conspiracy culture and paranoia and the things that happen. Um,
Well, and also real life because
yes.
the big dogs never get busted, and all you see is the collateral damage. The everyday people that are affected by these crimes, right, and what it did to the people trying to pursue it, right,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what made it such like a gritty, freaking dramatic thriller, right, and
Yeah.
so yeah, but that's yeah,
Yeah.
but
Because
no, season 4 complete dog shit.
although
Season 4.
Jodie Foster is good because Jodie Foster is a great actress. So
I don't. Yeah, we gotta come back. We gotta
okay. All
circle
right. All right.
back. Maybe we'll finish this because like yeah, I'd love to do that. But we're not talking about shit. We're talking
Yeah,
about
we're talking,
Berserker.
talking about Keanu Reeves is BRZRKR. So Keanu Reeves makes his comic book writing debut alongside New York Times bestselling co-writer Matt Kint and acclaimed artist Ron Garney in a brutally violent new series about one immortal warrior's fight through the ages. I mean, the celebrity definitely has its privileges.
Hmm.
You get hooked up with like, hey, oh, you want to make a comic book, Keanu Reeves? Cool. You want to work with like the two best people in the business
Yeah,
for your first project?
ever, and we'll hook you up with a sci-fi writer.
It says
What?
a war with no end. The man known only as B is half mortal and half god, cursed and compelled to violence, even at the sacrifice of his sanity. But after wandering the world for centuries, the berserker may have finally found refuge working for the U.S. government to fight fight the battles too violent and too dangerous for anyone else. In
Hmm.
exchange, B will be granted the one thing he desires, the truth about his endless, blood-soaked existence and how to end it. Keanu Reeves makes his comic book writing debut along all the things I just already said. Why would you put that on top of it? It's at the bottom of your paragraph, in the next paragraph. Anyways, so
Yeah,
that's BRZRKR. Now we are going to be covering issues basically 1 through 12, chapters 1 through 12. There is two specials that have come out this past year, I believe. I think one came out in like May and one came out in like October, I think, or
yeah,
December maybe. One of them came out like very recently. I figured maybe we'll reconvene at another time and do like
yeah.
a mini episode about the specials. And this does, and we're going to talk about it. This is going to be full spoilers. We're not holding anything back. We're just going to talk casually about the story and the themes and the characters, etc. Um, and because it's an open ended ending essentially, and there is clearly they're going to keep doing this.
Hmm.
But anyways,
Absolutely. But speaking about new releases and things coming out, how I found out that Keanu Reeves did a comic book series was there's some clip he did with one of the big news agencies, and he was talking about a novel, and so he wants to explore this world like more in depth, and so he's going to make he's working with I believe the same um, writer he worked with this on, diving deep into that world and like developing a novel. So they're working on that, and that should come out this year, early next year.
yeah,
And
no,
that's what,
there's a movie that's been
yeah.
optioned. They're doing a novel, and there's a 2-season anime show that was announced that's for Netflix.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, that was all
Well,
like,
hopefully they do like it proper and not like this like
you know what? I gotta.
3D bullshit. Yeah,
I hope so too. I really do, because that
yeah.
shit bothers me as well. But you imagine if Wesley Snipes had been hooked up with people this talented. Talent of
Dude,
God really could have taken off.
Talent of God would have been a fucking banger
It would
graphic
have been
novel series,
actually
man.
would have been a better graphic novel.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because there's not a lot to it, and it just gets to be because you can get away with a lot, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. It's very easy to communicate things in a streamlined way in comic books that would not necessarily map onto
Yeah.
other storytelling formats. So I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm very forgiving of comic books in a weird way.
Hmm. Well, like we said with the other not related thing earlier about like True Detective season 2, right? If you because you go in with a different expectation, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be by nature, it's going to be over the top. You know it's going to be like a little hokey, like in some areas, but like it's at the end of the day, you want to be entertained, right? And
Kind
so
of, yeah.
that's yeah, you just kind of go into this, right? So I had no expectations of you know, like reading like anything like deep or like crazy or like oh wow, like
Weren't you
get into
in
the
for a
narrative.
surprise? Weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
philosophy of Keanu Reeves, the
Right. Yeah.
warrior's path.
Oh yeah.
Um,
But
all right.
but
Well, I'm sorry.
oh no no, I was just thinking because when I read the synopsis of Berserker and like it was going on, I'm like this is such a Keanu Reeves thing. Like
Yes.
pulling into like Road 47, the major like
Well,
all the stuff of Warrior and
it's a good version of the things that like the bad things he's done. And I
mm-hmm,
think Berserker, if they make a movie, there's potential for this to be not a very good movie.
yeah,
That's like all over this thing. I would still watch it, obviously,
mm-hmm.
but it does feel a little old fashioned. Is that a weird way to put it? Like it feels very 2000s, like early 2000s as a story. And when I think about what the movie will look like, I'm thinking of stuff from that era.
Right, right. So, yeah.
It
But
actually reminded me a lot of Marcus Nispel's version of Conan the Barbarian, the one with Jason Momoa.
I
But
never watched that one.
it's not great.
Okay,
But aesthetically, the look of it and the violence and stuff, it actually kind of matches this pretty okay. But
cool. Yeah. Well, what's that director? I always say, oh, he should do that. If this ever becomes a movie, he should make it. Dragged Across Concrete. Zoller.
oh,
Oh,
Zoller, yeah, Zoller, S. Craig
every,
Zoller.
every time,
Actually,
like,
dude,
no, Zoller should do that. So,
give Zoller Berserker. I'd love to see S. Craig
give
Zoller's
Zoller
Berserker.
Berserker like that. Holy shit. Yeah.
That'd be
But
awesome.
I say that about every book that's not a novel that has been turned into a movie. So,
Yeah. Well, I think because when we were talking, because we haven't finished it, we're gonna do a Goes to the Library on Blood Meridian, Cormac McCarthy's seminal
mhm,
novel, and
yeah.
we were talking about it, and Paul made this. He said the same thing. He said, "That's Craig
Mhm.
Zoller should do because we've
Well,
read enough to understand the tone, and it's got a reputation. The book,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
But
like
that one he like legit should do.
I think he could do it too. Although it makes me want to. When you said that, S. Craig Zoller has written a couple westerns,
Mhm.
books, novels. That actually it makes me want to check it out. I was like, just because I can feel Cormac McCarthy's type of like voice in S. Craig Zoller. Like that's this. There's kind of just this matter of factness, but
I
also
feel that too. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking
so
about.
I really want to read some of his novels. I actually have his comic book. He put out a graphic novel like a couple years ago that I have. There's actually a review of it on the channel, everybody, if you want to check it out.
Nice.
Um,
As is Talent of God. We've done that one. Done
as
that
is
one.
Talent of God.
I mean, angels, demons, is that like, I guess that's broadly across all religions. They all have that version of that.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess so. You know what, Dr. Snipes, maybe you should just commit it. Okay, buddy? Take off
Mhm.
those booty beads, put on a rosary, Be ready to rock and roll. I'll get you $1 million, baby. I'll get you 10 millions. You think Mel Gibson made The
Okay, so
Passion of the Christ a hit by being wishy-washy, buddy? I don't think so.
fucking committed.
These are our shameless plugs. We've been doing this long enough now that we can reference our own material constantly.
Because just a couple cool guys,
Yeah, like I did. I talked about that Tom McDonald, Ben Shapiro song the other night, and I was like, oh, me and Paul did like a 3-hour Goes to the Internet back when we were doing that before we were doing live streams. Basically,
Yeah, buddy. Yeah,
about
get
that
on that Hog Nation. But dude, overall, so I got the physical copies.
Yes,
nice. Like I gone through it twice since I got it a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
I've read through them twice. Really appreciate that. But like just like overall impressions of that. You didn't get the hard copies, right? You got it on your Kindle.
Yeah, I got it on my Kindle because I got the first 2 volumes. Like I signed up for Comixology for like a month.
Okay.
And it was on there. So I generally I do read a lot of comic books on the Kindle, so it's not like that weird for me. But I do prefer to have an actual physical book. But
Did they give like all the cover art in the back of the Kindle? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, because that's like with this they go through all that in there, so it's really cool. Just kind of after you wrap through the volume, and then go ahead and like just kind of immerse yourself more in some other stills. So I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So yeah, what are your general impressions of the book? What do you think, like generally, before we start diving into particulars?
Yeah, man. So, like I said earlier, like I wasn't expecting too much. I didn't have any high expectations in terms of a story going into this, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, like aesthetically, as far as comics goes, I've been getting really into. I just wrapped up every like available volume of Vagabond, and then recently reread, Berserk, and then I got like Chainsaw Man. I just like complete weeb shit, right? And so I've been really like and I say this to bring out my state has been constantly like appreciating like artwork and combination with the story and going through this. So with that said, already having like an eye and like an appetite for digesting this kind of content. I thought it was like really rich illustrations, and it was fucking brutal. It was like gory. It kind of gets really you get into the paint like in the second page. I think he's already like knocked somebody's eyeball out their socket. So,
oh yeah. It's intentionally very intensely violent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I mean, he's literally just jumps into piles of guys and like explodes them. Like
yeah.
he's got these knives and he's just cutting them up. And they're just splash pages after splash page after splash page of him just in the middle of body parts and viscera as they're swirling around him.
Yeah. Yeah, and the main like protagonist, Unut or Berserker, as the namesake of the series, is like he's immortal, and then he heals quicker than Wolverine, So yeah, so he's very very reckless, and I think at this point in the series he's like 80,000 years old, and so he's kind of going through it there. And so his thing with working with the government is basically they're going to find a way to reverse his immortality, make him mortal. He doesn't want to die. He just wants to be mortal, which I thought was cool. Like, because how do you get somebody like that, in terms of the story, like, to be cooperative, right? So he has like a bit of a bloodlust. That's like just part of his inherent condition. And then, but what he's yearning for in 80,000 years of roaming on this earth is to be mortal, right? And so that's why he's going through all these like rigorous like testing and blah blah. So I enjoyed the setup, getting into it. It was like easy to get. I thought they did a good job, kind of getting you into the story with this, right? Because with an 80,000 year span, like where do you start, right? And so it just right off like the first couple pages, he's jumping out of a helicopter and like smashing skulls, and then he has this constant interlock going with one of the main scientists that's researching on him too. So I thought it was a cool way. The way they kind of like create a lot of the dialogue, the way they illustrate that, I thought was pretty well done. For this.
Because they never have to stop the story for the action. It's the stories and movement. It's actually it's like a rule for action filmmakers. One of them, if you guys ever listen to the audio commentary for the original The Terminator with James Cameron, if you watch the movie The Terminator, all of the exposition is given while they're running. And he's like, that's because they got to get to the next action scene, and we need
Right.
this information. But they found a way to kind of do that in Berserker. My general impressions is I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it a second time. I did not like it nearly as much the first time as I did the second time. I thought it was a lot worse written. Because it wears all of its influences so heavily on its sleeve. I mean, this is like everything Keanu Reeves has ever read.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like just wrapped into something. I wrote down some of the ones that like were obvious. You know, it's kind of got a Highlander aspect
Yep.
to it. It's got a Conan the Barbarian aspect to it. It's got more recently the Northman. Obviously, he's not pulling from that, but that's pulling from the same kinds of Norse
You're right.
nomadic kind of stuff. And just a lot of other comic books, a lot of Vertigo comic books. This reminded me a lot of something that would have come out of DC's Vertigo back in like the 90s. There's a lot of stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm very familiar with this kind of story, this kind of comic book. And the first time I read through it, I kind of wrote it off a little bit. I'll be honest. I was just kind of like, well, you know, it's fun. It's gory and it's got cool splash pages and some great art, and it's a little predictable, but decent. And then I read it a second time, and I saw actually how rich that story actually is, and the relationship with B, BRZRKR, Unut, whatever you like to call him, his relationship to the concept of immortality versus mortality, and also where he came from, his roots and his family, and the relationship he had with his father. It's actually a big part, and that is part. That's and the end of the story is so thoughtful because it really brings that all back around at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely, man. So, just kind of like tagging on some like other takeaways. I think we're pretty much done with like general impressions.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
It's the like the one thing like I caught like on the second read was going by with the main mercenary or covert ops like guy that kept like going with Berserker on these missions. They kept calling him kid, kept calling him son and whatnot. All this stuff. I just remember thinking like, well, no, I'm like, the guy's fucking 80,000 years old. Like, what the fuck is he doing that? And then I got just start back. I'm like, oh, it's what the protocols. Obviously, like they've been working in like all this stuff. So it's just like cool, a lot of things I read off because I was like, pompously going in with like low expectations. Oh, this wasn't tough.
So
that was like one example too. Just like, oh, they put this in there too. Like,
because
with the, like earthly father too.
It's an example of what we were talking about like you really got to read at least like half of a book to know whether or not you're going to like it. This is a kind of a thing that doesn't really reveal itself till very late. Which I do. If I have a major criticism, I think that the villains are very weak and underdeveloped, and I don't understand why they want to do it other than the fact that who doesn't want to be a god?
Right.
Like I don't understand anything
comic
about
book villains, Sean.
No, they are. But the thing is though, but it didn't have to be that way. That's a choice.
True, that's
kind of a choice.
That's fair.
That's my biggest criticism. Like Stephen Caldwell is like he becomes a supervillain at the end, and I know nothing about him.
Yeah, that is too right because he's like a little bit there in the shadows, and then all of a sudden, boom, let's go with Protocol X, and then next thing you know, he's got the God power, right? And so
and then that's when B no longer he's immortal now, and blah blah blah, and it ends exactly. Well, it just those kind of things all fell into place in a way that I thought was like, I expect that to be the thing. Although, how did you feel about Girl Boss Diane? I mean, she comes and she kind of she's like, well, I'll kick his ass, and I'm like, okay. I would have liked to see B figure this out as a mortal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, be very honest of him, and then his like godlike kids who like after 2 weeks they go off to go spread their seed.
That's the way it's done.
Like, well, that's how we go.
That's how winning's done, boy.
Yeah. No, that was that was a bit like cringy to get here. Like, I have a PhD in this, and then I made up my own PhD in something because no one even thought about this because how bad and boss lady I am.
That's when you're getting some like Wesley Snipes type characters from Town
Yeah,
of God.
I was just going to bring that up. So there was like some Town of God, like estimate, like where everybody is like so ridiculously impressive, right? And
Yeah.
then,
I'm the greatest scientist in my field. I'm the
mm,
greatest soldier in the world. I've been alive for 80,000 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much. I there was a like some, and there's some like hokey stuff too, like where he the main villain, his name is slipping me from my mind right now.
Stephen Caldwell.
Right, Stephen Caldwell is, and he's having them do all these research, like translate hieroglyphics and like doing all this other stuff, and
Hmm.
like I don't
Might
know,
as well.
like no, it makes sense. It makes sense, but like after being tested for like 2 centuries already, like nobody's done this yet, right? Is
Yeah.
this the
Yeah.
first time and where he's been tested? Because they have him. It looks like he's been observed and tested on since like pre actually like post Civil War era.
Yeah.
Right, well, it's illustrated, right? So
Well,
like
because, well, yeah, but the thing,
nobody has thought like, hey, can you take a look at this? Like,
well, maybe they hadn't. Maybe he wasn't willing, right? Like, because they're
no.
saying if you do all this stuff, it might kickstart a memory.
Mhm.
Because this is part of the whole thing is
Oh,
that
the protocol things. Yeah, yeah.
he has like an amnesia and he's trying to remember his past. They say that they're doing it to help him so that he can one day become mortal and grow old and die. But they want it because they're trying to find his birthplace so they can kind of understand the circumstances and the science, if you will, surrounding his birth.
Right.
So they can recreate it. It's a replicable thing. And the way that they figure that out is like Stephen Caldwell's like, but if the lightning only struck once, then that would be a coincidence, but twice is repeatable. Like, and then he's off to the races. Man has a vision.
Yep. Yep. Off an anecdotal story from 80,000 years ago. Science, baby. Science.
You know what's one thing I noticed too on the second read through? You know all the dialogue you're seeing when they're fighting, or during the action scenes in the beginning. I didn't realize that's just her, because they constantly, and which also is kind of annoying sometimes, they constantly jump around a timeline, even in current day, and it can be a little hard to be like, where were we right now? Because she's listening to an old interview of his that she conducted with him.
Yep.
That's actually what you're hearing throughout the entire thing until they reveal, for some reason, like later, that now she's listening to it, and we've just been hearing her listen to it and remember what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it's a little convoluted at first because like he's having like an internal like monologue with the whole like are you ready? It's time, and going with that, and then it gets into that.
Well, it's
that
supposed to
interview.
be ambiguous, right? It's supposed to be kind of like, what's going on? Like, who's saying what? Like, that's how it's supposed to be at the start, and you don't know who he's talking to,
The
or
one
who
thing
he's thinking with.
the one thing I want to say about like Anut's birth scene, they go into like this really it's like I don't know if it's an homage or just throwback, but it just a play on like sci-fi's like obsession with like pyramids or like triangle shaped objects, making it look like Tron. Like that's a higher life form, like with these Tron objects.
Oh, you mean when she goes through like the spirit realm, the quantum realm, and she's like
when
busting
BRZRKR
apart?
actually gets born, and then like his like Neanderthal mother gets like she gets
impregnated.
busy with the godlike creature, or probably
well, because if you guys don't know, he's supposed to also be the origin of Jesus's story. So you all know. Immaculate Conception.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that, but it's just like that graphic there, which will pop up here at some point. Like it's just like the first thing that came to my mind was like the Stargaze scene from Space Odyssey. Like there's that, and then but then there's like then I just started feeling like going down like where do you see this imagery like with this type of story like all the time? It's like Fifth Element, Stargate, like actually, all these things like what so I don't know if they're like paying homage like to the sci-fi aspect of that, or
it's almost like that's just how they do it in comic
right
books.
Or is this just like
honestly, because I've seen that exact color palette with a very similar situation like probably 1,000 times in 1,000 different comic books.
Exactly. And then it actually made me like do a little spiral, just kind of looking into like pyramids with sci-fi, and that led me to an author named like Theodore Sturgeon or whatever, and he wrote a book about A Way Home, and it's like sci-fi like through pyramids, and then yeah, it was published like 50 years ago. He's been dead for 38, so I'm just like, huh. And
Yeah.
now that's en route to my house. So that's one thing Berserker did
Hey,
for me. They got
there you
me
go.
posted a throwback sci-fi book. So like,
All right, well, let's hone in a little bit. Let's talk about something like let's talk about just B's character and his journey. What did you think of his journey? What did you think of his character's journey? I mean, like, just to get it started, like, I thought it was kind of cool because it's like a character that had to rediscover the traditional hero's journey again and understand why it's worthy, and then the way his character, which I'm kind of disappointed that he's not dead. I think he should be dead.
mm-hmm,
I think because he fulfilled his purpose. His purpose was starting a family
mm-hmm,
and continuing a legacy. That was his purpose. That he figured
right,
it out.
mm-hmm,
So for him to be back alive in some sort of wherever the fuck he is, other dimension or something, a little
right.
disappointing.
That is disappointing. Just for like a little context, because when he's going through his protocols, working with the government, and he's recovering new memories, and then he's recounting the time he was born and that his mom went back, like you said, lightning striked again to give something to be a solution. So
Yeah,
he's thinking that thing is going to give him mortality, and
it's the
what
MacGuffin. It's the thing
yeah,
they're all after. Yeah,
yeah, right, and but what it ends up doing is make a viable partner for him to start a family, and so that's like, all right, just kind of jump in there, but that's part of his purpose, his longing for, like that's what he wants to do, and that's why he's roaming around, no outlet and just like filling up with rage. And where I like really struggled from like a character development standpoint is just you see all kinds of character arts and like a gazillion different types of novels, right? We read throughout the years, and a very, 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 very much shorter time span have come to some form of like self-actualization or realization or maturity or some type of arc to where they get it right. And you think the 80,000 years, like this guy is still pretty much the Neanderthal when he was
he's
like
still an
snapped into
idiot.
this
He's
world.
still a dummy. He's
Yeah,
actually, honestly, yeah. B is a little stupid. He's a little
yeah,
naive, maybe is the way to put it, which doesn't make sense because he's 80,000 years old. It would have been
yeah.
nice if they had sprinkled in there that he had tried to do this several times in his life and gave up.
And the like in
You know
the
what I mean?
beginning,
Like the technology wasn't there. He
right?
couldn't find it. He couldn't remember. He couldn't put the pieces together. And then he gets frustrated and then fucks off for another 100 years. Like that would have been a great way to do that and show that internal struggle and his desire
Yeah,
that he's always kind of wanted this and didn't know how to get it. Like it would have been interesting.
right. And so it's just, and well, that's one thing too. Like with the 3 volumes, like it still felt like rushed. Like
Yeah,
like we just like
it's a very well. That's what I mean. Like especially towards the back half, because
hmm
it spends a lot of time like developing him. Like B is a pretty well-rounded character in terms of when you don't take into account that there's like an 80,000 year gap between like where most of his backstory is and where you see him today.
right.
Um, because but it doesn't make sense that he's still kind of the same person he was at the end of like us telling him about like this initial part of his life, and he's
Right.
still kind of that same guy, maybe a little more jaded. But I guess who wouldn't be?
You were right, like 80,000 years of like killing it and then falling in love and then outliving them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
going on and on and on and on. And so, but it's just like when you like regenerate, like your health, like do you just like reset your fucking brain? Because like you said, he is kind of a dummy, and I don't know if it was partly like it's like, well, what are they going to do to me? What are they going to do to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm immortal, right? And so that's why you just play along with it. He's made like several references like to them. Like they has alluded that people have tried before. They went for like since like post Civil War stuff, like really like testing them, measuring them, and doing all the poking and prodding them like all over the world, and they haven't got anywhere. So they kind of touched on that a little bit, but it wasn't like they didn't really like drive that point there too.
No,
But
I
that
mean
was
it's like
just like that was my main like thing with like from like the character standpoint. It's just like this is where you are, you
yeah.
know.
No, I agree
After
with you. The span of time in between, like it doesn't
Mhm.
make sense that he would be this close to the person he was when we didn't, in that between time.
Right.
Um, But yeah, it's a fun, actually, the sequence when they're showing all the different time periods of people like measuring his brain and poking him and stuff was actually a pretty fun. It was a fun little
Yeah.
moment, and I could actually see that part in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, the cutting and the way they
Yeah.
would edit it and stuff with some rhythmic light music. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be nice when I see Keanu finally get it done at 60 some odd years old.
If everyone could do it, it'd be Keanu. It'd be Keanu.
As long as he plays the character at every age, I'm fine. And I mean every age. A baby. Get that guy in a mocap suit.
Yeah,
Let's do
man.
it. Go all the way. No, I really I hear what you're saying, and I I totally agree. But I do think that the little subtle touches in terms of, because really, to me, the story really comes together in like the at the very end. Like when all of those pieces fall into place and all of the setup they have done to actually kind of subtly imply to you and infer what B wants and why he wants to do this, which
Right.
ends up having a family and stuff. I mean, that seed is planted when he talks about the first time he falls in love, because he has a baby and the baby's born stillborn.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of devastates him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he sees like the dead, lifeless baby at a distance as he's being pulled apart, and and that's something that it's a noteworthy memory in his 80,000 years that he
Right.
would actually say it, right? So it kind of implies this that's like a failure to him. And it makes him feel like a freak. Until he got, his new baby mama, Diana. She just had to get hit by some of that magic lightning. All good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. They're gonna be good for a long time. A long time. But it was it just like what else about the story to like really chomp into? So like the villain.
I think the stuff about legacy and about like the father. I will say though, I think the father was like a little too like of a dick at some points. It would have been more interesting if he wasn't, but I guess because it's a comic book and you're trying to convey this information about this character very quickly, they kind of have to lay it on a little thick.
Right.
Because it's an interesting part of the story about like this guy. He's like, well, we finally have the ability to protect ourselves. We finally have the ability to kind of stop enemies, and then he just can't stop
Mm-hmm.
because he becomes kind of a conqueror.
Do you think that one of the things that they're trying to convey like with this is that he saw from the because he makes a reference to the first time that he felt that he had purpose was in his youth,
When he felt
like legit youth, when he was part of the tribe and like defending people, but just seeing his own father become bloodthirsty and power hungry with his ability, and then eventually just destroyed the whole tribe with his ambition, right? That accompanied with in not being able to procreate, the that he just got like so like jaded, so like that made such an impact 80,000 years ago that like and that he couldn't do it, so that's why he's just going to be essentially like a wanderer and just going around killing and didn't seek power himself. Because you think 80,000 years ago, that's plenty of backstory to like build a freaking empire.
Well, it's very yeah, exactly. Like, why wouldn't he want something for himself? He's just kind
Right.
of like you said, aimlessly being a dog of war. Like he's actually being the thing that like his father told him he was.
Right.
Yeah. But that's after. I mean, it's. I think like when you see the first time he falls in love, that's like 12,000 years in.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
like it's a long gap of time. So
It's
I don't know.
it's
I
like
mean,
one of those
I don't
things like
know.
when you flip through it, right, and quite and read it, like oh, it's entertaining, but it's just like when you let it breathe a little bit and you're thinking about the story, you're just like
No, there's a lot of contrivance. There's a lot of like it's shortcuts basically. Like there's things that feel like incomplete about that. And I agree with you. I don't think the book has a way to resolve that, and now they're past it, so they're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm sure they'll use the flashback structure again. I mean, like you said, it's 80,000 years. I mean, it's a good way to frame the story because you can use it as a framing device for juxtaposition about how B or Utun is going to grow, like in this arc.
Right.
Something back into his past, so he has like a struggle. He has a drive. He wants something because they're going to have to figure out what they want now that we know that they're continuing the series.
Right.
But I think I was overall though, I think with his character arc, I overall forgiving like that kind of the awkwardness of that. or the contrivance of that, I think it's pretty good. And I actually I respect when heroes are allowed to be fucking good guys, like actually gets to become a good guy. It gets to have like a positive message about having a family, like it's actually a thing. That he's at least that he like values that. Like he values kind of like this archetypal nuclear situation. And the tragedy, the irony is that he won't get to live to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or so he thought
Mm-hmm.
before the last pages.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it continues. I'm definitely on board to check out more as like they progress, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably pick up the novel too. Just
Ooh, you'll go novel. You'll go full in.
yeah, I'll
bought in.
go full in with this one just to see what they do. Maybe they do address like all that, because there's like a couple interviews with Keanu where he's just like just want to like dive in deeper and like explore the world, explain the world a little bit more. And
sorry.
No, go for it.
No, so whenever when you talk about him giving interviews about this, I see him just in his classic Keanu, like black blazer, black shirt, black pants, and up like doing moves and like showing people like, oh, it's so cool, dude. And then he falls in love. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he sits back down and he's like eye to eye with the person.
Yeah. But I shot you on X like this beautiful video fan, probably my kid's age, getting his BRZRKR copy signed.
I'm such a big fan.
What's your name?
Noah. My name is Noah.
Hi Noah, I'm Keanu.
You're probably my favorite actor in the whole world.
Oh my gosh, Noah, thank you. Did you see Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4?
Yeah, he's my favorite character.
Canada's greatest stuntman. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I really liked it.
I saw that. I actually saw that. Actually, that might be one of the reasons why I actually recognize Berserk, because I think I saw that video.
Oh, okay, no kidding. Yeah, that's that was cool. It's just like, oh, but that's how he would explain to everybody else. So, also at the day of this filming, February 2nd, 2024, he's trending on X for refused to give Whoopi Goldberg like some award because she's not a nice person.
It's not true.
I know it's not true, but it would have been so fucking funny.
It was so funny. Dude, it's so crazy like how something like that can go viral and like 80% of the people just believed it immediately.
It's from like some satirical like site, but dude, like I was just like, oh man, it just fucking flaming, dude. But the post that took up a lot of traction of that immediately disabled comments. So like, how are you going to get like 20,000 like reposts and like 50,000 likes and then there's 57 comments like, oh, they're disabled. Like, they're like, no, keep this up. I want that traction. I want that X payout, baby. I want that.
Oh yeah, looking for those X dollars. Well, that's it's kind of ruined that website a little bit. Like just the attention farming that people do. You never know if somebody's just like saying something to get attention or if they're being sincere. It kind of destroys your ability to communicate like in a weird way. It makes it way less useful because people are being way less sincere. You have people like Dame Lucra up there being like, yo, dog, give me $10,000 and my boy with this this Nikon Coolpix will go down and shoot a documentary in tunnels. I haven't watched it yet. It's coming soon. You may have seen it already. I'll be watching this on a nightcap, so look for that.
Yeah. Well, we're boys. We follow each other on X, so.
Oh, I'm sure you do. He's a good friend. This is your bug man behavior. I don't know what's going on. You and Prophet. I don't know what's up with you guys. You guys are bug men. That's what I say. That's what me and my son, he sees pictures of you and he says, you're a bug man? Oh, it's just like urban, yuppie, city dwell. Like just like the... Yeah, like the progressive type. It's a joke.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't fucking funny. Cut it out.
Stop. Enough. Stop talking about Dom like this. He's the most censored man on X.
He is the breaker of narratives, and you don't want to get exposed. You don't want to get exposed. Because I will clip this, and then
ahead.
I'll DM it to him.
Dame, you got to stop just stealing people's shit and then writing breaking. And then describe the video. It's scumbag shit. You were fucking ruining it so you can make $10. Go get a fucking job, Dame. Jesus Christ. Anyways.
Yeah, dude. The like besides that, the story, like I mean, we didn't really like recap anything. I don't think like we need to, but like
No, get
it
in,
was
man. We're here to talk about it. We
it was
don't.
kind of like when they it just like everything, like you got this, and just maybe I'm being too pedantic, or like trying to not taking it at face value, but like when we say it's just everything was contrived, like it starts, you're here the snapshot, we have a couple flashbacks, and it ends, and so there's a lot to think about, but it
Mhm.
wasn't the actual story told. What I'm chomping on more about, like the 3 volumes of Berserker, is what wasn't explicit or what wasn't told, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
that's indicative of like a good piece of art, right? It is like do that, but then other times too, I think it's more
It's
like critical like of it than maybe I should be. I don't know.
no. I think it's fair because there's only one clear arc in this, and this is Bees. Every character, every other person is like is there for utility.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not interesting.
No.
They're not. Like like the special forces guy, right? Like it's
Mhm.
cool. Like I like all the little subtle things you can pick up, especially on your second read through of why he's talking to him that way and stuff. Isn't that an opportunity to have like a great foil? Shouldn't
Mhm.
have he been like the bad guy of volume 1?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of actual stakes. There's not a lot of tension going on for most of the story, which is something that surprised me the first time I read it, because I had known about it basically by its reputation of being ultra violent.
Mhm.
And then I read it and I'm like, yeah, it's ultra violent, but it's mostly just talking. It's just
Mhm.
mostly talking about the plot of Highlander.
Yeah. It's
I mean, because
yeah.
it's the same things happen in Highlander where he's like, oh well, I met a woman and then she grew old and I didn't, and now I do this and I'm kind of aimless right now, and then but I've been reinvigorated now that Highlanders are trying to kill me, and I met this other woman and I think I'm going to fall in love with her. Like, it has a very similar vibe.
Mhm.
We'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, but it just like runs right through it, and you can't do it. So, but the only thing that's just driving it is that this guy's immortal. He's 80,000 years, like you said, right? Like a little cheeky, but still fair. Like yeah, it's just a Highlander story with different names, right? But
Which is
yeah,
fine. I mean, I don't have a problem
and
with
that
that.
is fine. That is fine. Like yeah, like if it works, it works. But I'm just like I don't know if I don't
Are
know
you
if they
turning
force
on it?
correct the development. Well, the thing is, like I think the good way to put it was like there's like no contrast, right? There's no everybody was
There,
like a
there's
pseudo NPC
there's no
character
drama for
just for
most.
him, right?
There's no stakes or drama because when
Right.
you're in a flashback, you know that he's gonna get to the present.
Hmm.
So there's nothing really, and the characters in the past are utility driven, so you don't really get to know them very much.
Right. Right. But just like the whole thing with the occult, because what we end up finding out is that the villain, is part of a centuries old like cult trying to
Which is something they throw in like at the last second. It's like a
exactly
throwaway line. Diana's like, "Oh yeah, turns out this guy's been in a secret cult this whole time." You're like,
like what? Yeah,
"What?
let's get him. Like there's no
What the
you know what I mean,
fuck?"
there's nothing, there's no like no friction, like no like or conflict. Like, oh, I've been working with this, like man for years. Like, there's no. It was just like, oh, this is it. This is what's going to happen now. New bad guy, new fight scene, and it's just that it didn't come across as like thoughtful
Yeah,
to
well,
me.
it made me laugh because I was like, "Oh, this ends in the same way every superhero movie ends, in a giant CGI mess." Like, can you imagine the finale of that in a movie?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
there's just gonna be a giant CGI mess. Everything's exploding. People are throwing lightning at each other. Like, that's gonna be a nightmare.
right, right. Yeah, man. So that was that. But like with that being said, though, I still think Berserker is like an interesting enough character to keep going on with the
Oh,
volume. Probably.
as like a throwaway, like little pulpy, fun
Hmm.
distraction. 100.
Yeah.
percent Like, it's not like I've read a lot worse. You know,
No.
I have. Uh, but and I do think I think that there's like it has the material to be more interesting than it is, which is kind of frustrating. So now that we're more deeply talking about it, like my feelings about the first time I read it are kind of resurfacing a little bit. Because I was
Right.
way more critical the first time I read it, because I read it kind of slowly, with
Hmm.
intention, locked this in the brain. Second time I read it, I kind of read it quickly because I was like, oh shit, I want to reread this before we talk. So I
Right.
kind of zipped through it. It was much funner to read when you zip through it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your impression of it is just better
Right.
when you're like, okay,
Yep. Yep.
it's a better experience.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but yeah, overall from that though, I did not hear that they're going to do an anime on this.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Well, hold
still
on. Before we get to the anime though, we gotta talk about what is the central thesis of the film, my friend, or the comic book, which is love conquers all. How are we gonna end war?
Yeah. Yeah. Making
love,
babies.
family,
Making love, not war.
legacy, generational stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, it ties back into like you roaming this earth for 80,000 years. Like the single purpose comes into like what continues life itself, right? And then it is family, and I think that's that's a wholesome message.
It's the
juxtaposed
building
with,
of
like,
a new civilization. This is every child you have is a new opportunity to make the world around you better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, and to go and see, centuries and centuries go by, right? And it's just like everything is repeating itself, albeit with more with different advanced technology. It's still the same ship. There's corruption, there's cults, and there's like people are like
Yeah,
bloodthirsty, but
it's going to get really. I think the continuation of this series is going to get progressively dumber.
yeah. Yeah, because where do they go? Like with this now that he after 80,000 years at this point, right? Like now he's reached his goal of being able to have kids and go like, so what do we do now? Are we going to tone down the violence and develop this what are you going to develop? Like where do you go from here, right? And so
Well, he's got to have. It's. I think it's going to be kind of simplistic with the kids. It's about them learning how to control this dual side of themselves, like everybody has to. It's just it's kind of like, well, if you had a bad dad and then as a result he raised you kind of fucked up and you were kind of bad a lot of your life, but then at some point you see the error of your ways, you have children, you want to be a better parent than your father was for you, and you feel like there's an opportunity to correct mistakes, etc. And for him, that's being the berserker. That's kind of giving over to the bloodlust, the rage. And I have a feeling his kids are going to be a little bit more amenable to letting go of that or being able to control it better, like they're the future.
Right. It's just kind of yeah. We'll see where that goes. We'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. But yeah, they had announced the 2-season anime at like a con. This is a couple years ago, and I don't think anything's come of it. So I don't know. We live in a world now where like these major studios and stuff announce new movies every year and only make 2 of them. So. It's like Disney Star Wars. They announced movies. They announce movies all the time. They just never make them.
Yeah. But I think overall, like it was visually awesome. But like when it comes down to the story and the development, like I really wish they spent more time building this up and coming up with just other characters. Like you don't get to know or
or just build out the characters they have. Like just build out the ones they have.
Exactly.
I mean, there is just. It's like I think you're correct when you say it feels kind of rushed. It feels like a very truncated version of something.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the past, like that should have been a whole 12 issues of just the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of him, instead of his dad doing it, what if Unut had a friend?
Mm-hmm.
And what if they had conflicts and blah blah blah? You know what I'm saying? And
what was life immediately after your dad going through this stuff, right? Give us some better context or something to chew on, or why you are the way you are now after 80,000 years, right? What has happened, right? Because that's just, and I know it's a comic book, okay, that is not lost on me, but it just at some point, are you going to try to?
Well, it's not an excuse because there are comic books that achieve these things. It's not impossible,
Yeah. Well, you're more seasoned in this medium than I am, but so I don't have a lot of references.
Well, if you're into comic books, boy, I got a few that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, no, I'll take them. But yeah, man, it's just that was the only thing. It was it was entertaining, but I would have loved it to be and that's.
Has your opinion of it lessened over this hour conversation?
I wouldn't say less because I still that's still like my disposition hasn't changed. Like it was cool, but I want it to be great, you know. And then and I don't know how you go forward with that without changing your initial structure with the 3 volumes of this, right?
Yeah.
I'll, no one's probably going to go back and like
Well,
read it,
because
but like it's
it's
just
to me, it's very obvious that this entire thing is to concoct a film universe intentionally. Like they're starting with the comic book because the comic book, they clearly have those 12 issues planned out, and it acts as 3 distinct acts of a story. And I feel like that's because this is the script for the movie, basically. And I think that's their intention. That's why it sold so quickly. I mean, it sold. They sold the rights to this before I think before the first volume was out.
yeah.
Because this was a little controversial when it started because Boom Studios,
Mm-hmm.
they crowdfunded this, and people were upset. Like other comic book writers were upset because they're like, well, why are you crowded? Now you're like kind of taking away our attention from our projects, because more independent writers and stuff like that. They're like, you're a studio, you have money, why can't you just do it? And that's not the way it went down. And it was a very successful crowdfunding campaign. So
I see.
made a few $1 million.
Yeah. Well, it happened. It happened, and here we are talking about it. So
It happened all right, dude. Listen, it happened for 80,000 years.
80,000 years. Yeah. But no, man, it didn't lessen though. But you liked it better the second time around, but now talking about it for an hour, are you back to where you felt like the first time you read through it, or
I'm closer to the first time, yeah.
you're closer to the first time?
I mean, I'm still like, I'm very on board with you where it's like, yeah, it's like just passively entertaining. And if you don't think about it, like all the better.
Mm-hmm.
I think like really like read it through it as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm. Is it a better story than Talon of God?
Yes. Well, maybe, I don't know.
I'd say it's an equal story to Talon of God, but Talon of God is way more cheesy.
Dude,
what made that
God,
like
I would
the charm?
I'd kill for this graphic novel. We
Yeah,
gotta
the
get
charm
contact
of
Wesley
Talon of
Snipes.
God was how over the top, like cheesy it was.
I mean, Wesley
Right.
Snipes just wrote himself like, "What's the fucking coolest Blade movie?" Like,
yeah,
but with angels instead of vampires, angels and demons.
yeah.
I'm thinking about. I still think about Talon of God sometimes, like the
Me too.
opening when he sets
Me
the
too.
bum on fire and shit. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll go back. We'll go back and revisit that one.
Whenever I see Wesley Snipes in like Blade gear, I kind of think about Talon of God. It's weird. It's weird because it's like the same character, so it's like
yeah.
Except this one guy probably wears a duster and drives a motorcycle instead of a muscle car.
Yeah, but but we got the same thing. Guy wandering through time, with purpose, but only they have they both have wholesome messages, and they're both they both
That's
serve
right.
their purpose, right? But I do think though they got an opportunity like with the novel with this to really
they can flesh it out.
back that there. So I'm hoping that's why when I said earlier that I'm going to get the novel because that's my hope is that they really kind of put some more context into.
Well, see, for me, like I probably wouldn't read the book unless you wanted me to, so we could talk about it. Because it's as a story, as a product, it is so derivative that even if they add stuff in there, I'm like, yeah, but I kind of know already what you're like how to do this myself because I've heard this story 1,000 times already.
Right.
And I don't criticize them for doing that or whatever, but for me personally, dude, if I was like fucking 12 years old and I read this, it would be like one of my favorite things ever. 12 or 13.
Yeah.
It would have blew my mind. It would have been awesome. I would have been like, oh, dude.
Oh, dude, if they do it right, it'll blow my mind now. Pushing 40. I don't care.
Well, it's kind of like, remember when we saw, Big Paul and I saw Cloud Atlas around the same time, and we both had the same reaction. It's like, man, if I saw this when I was 16, I would have thought this was like
cool.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fine movie. It's,
That's the true.
It didn't blow like the philosophy and what it presents didn't blow our minds at 28 or 26,
However
however
old we were,
we
yeah, man. But either way, though, man, I'm stoked you picked it up with me, man, and
Hell
like
yeah.
watched
No,
it.
of course. I'm always
Watched
down,
it.
especially something like this because it's the turnaround is very quick. You know, you can
Mhm.
read a comic book or a graphic novel in 2 hours.
Yeah, man.
So I can read it a few times. It doesn't monopolize like, large swaths of my life,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I read through two of my son's jujitsu sessions, so
There you
it's
go.
good. It was good.
Well, actually, is your son reading it?
Yeah, yeah.
What did
Read
he
it
think? I mean,
because
he's the age. He's the
I
age.
want him to read it because exactly he's the age where he think this was badass and like what she does, and plus too it was wholesome. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing in it that was that he's not going to find elsewhere. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of
So
course.
like,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
is like this is a good one and like a good thing to talk about. And I think maybe that's also why I'm taking this with a rosy tint is because
Mhm.
I am talking about with my son. It's a pleasurable experience as well. So
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Because this is something like I would definitely show Foster at some point. Like Foster would love something like that. He loves stuff like this, like stuff that has like the lore, the deep lore. He'd be
yeah,
all
yeah.
into it. So when he gets a little older, I told him I won't read him. I can't read him comic books anymore.
No.
It's too much work on my end. Like you do voices, you got to like point to things, like
Mm-hmm.
whoosh, whoosh. I go full hog when I read comic books with him, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're still an artist at heart. So.
Yeah, I can't help it. You're right. It's that narcissism. It's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, don't worry, son.
Dad problems. Let me tell you.
I gotcha. But yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I think our summation is that like if you're just looking for something that's kind of passively entertaining, not going to put too much thought into it, it's probably worth picking up. And the art is incredible. The art's awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of the thing. Shout out to Ron Garney.
Mm-hmm.
It's some really beautiful stuff. Actually, there's some panels that are actually like really striking stuff. It's actually, I'm surprised we didn't talk about it at all. Really, it's the kind of the best part of the book.
Yeah.
It's because there's some of those panels are still.
Oh, we did that. We did at the top. The artwork was awesome.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but I think, but it's so essential to the pleasurable experience of reading it.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't want to give it the short shrift. Ron Garney,
Oh, yeah.
Bill Crabtree, Clem Robbins. Just because you guys aren't, Keanu Reeves doesn't mean I don't appreciate you. Matt Kint, you kind of let me down. Okay, you were supposed to help him write this. What the fuck? Are you setting him up? You setting him up, boy?
Mm-hmm.
You send John Wick to your house, motherfucker. He's still alive too.
Yeah, I don't care what they say. What they say. John Wick 5.
Well, they're like, oh, how much money did this make? Oh, he's not dead. Oh, he's very alive. All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Big Paul. Thanks for the suggestion, and thanks for hanging out and talking with me.
Hell yeah, man. Always love doing it.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time on something Zoobox related. I don't know where else you would see me. If you see me at the store, just walk away. I don't want to talk to you. I'm buying energy drinks. Leave me alone. It's the only time I get to myself is at the grocery store. But yeah, we'll be back. Look forward to in the future. We're going to be talking about the Blood Meridian this year, probably. We're going to be talking about that Lou Perez book. Big Paul had mentioned a book to me. So just in case anybody at home wants to get ahead of us.
Yeah.
The Lou Perez book, that joke isn't funny anymore. On the death and rebirth of comedy. So that's another one we're going to be looking at. Make sure to check out Nightcap. It's on Rumble, on X, Mondays and Thursdays. But every other Thursday, we got a new show. We do Goes to the Movies live now. We do a live version of the show every other Thursday. Me and my boy Jeramobi, my adopted son. he makes him squirm when I say it. I love it. My adopted son Jeremy. We talk about movies. We're going to be talking about Misery. That'll be the next one. It's Rob Reiner's Misery, which is going to be awesome because I really like Misery, and it's going to be fun to make fun of Rob Reiner. And you can find me at all the places that I am. Goodbye. End recording.